What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. I wanted to put this in the top of the show. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com to get your ex-drinking buddy merch. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, we're coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it is still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with somebody and reminisce about the old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Chloe Fimiano. What's
Hi.
up?
Not much.
Normally I scream the intro, but as everyone can tell, we are doing a house show tonight. So I didn't want my roommates to be like, "What the? Is he fucking recording again? What is he doing?"
Do they care?
No, they don't care at all. But
Okay.
as you know, a comic and an anxious person and somewhat of a narcissist, I always think everyone's thinking about me.
Of course, and they are.
So thank you for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you going out of your way to get up here.
It's great.
You said when you went down to the subway, it was still light out, and now it is dark.
Yeah.
So it was quite a trek.
Yeah, I have a thing about coming uptown. I don't do it.
You just don't.
I just don't. But I would for this because I am a narcissist as well, and I like to hear myself talk.
Yeah, we're going to talk about you. So before we get too far into anything, plug everything for the listeners. Any shows, this will come out Friday for Patreon, everywhere else Monday. So any shows you have coming up, anything like that?
What am I doing? I don't know.
Social media? Instagram? What's your Instagram?
Follow me at Clodog. That's CHLO_DAW 4Gs.
We'll link everything in the show notes. Again, I appreciate you coming on. We met, I think, at Drew's mic.
Yeah.
When you were going through a job transition.
Oh, shit. Was that the first time we really talked?
That was the first time we ever talked.
The day I lost my job.
Yeah, because after the mic, I came out and I was like,
yeah.
are you good? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I literally, it was like, I had just turned 29, and then I, like, hooked up with someone that morning, and I was like, beep, boop, boop, like, bebopping, like, yeah.
It's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great day.
Yeah, I was like, woo, go Chloe. And then like 8 hours later, I lost my job and then walked into a mic and was like, well, I guess I'm here.
You literally walked into the mic like, as you just explained, you had just gotten off the phone, right?
Yeah. I like got a text and it was like from my coworker because like everybody got laid off. And then he was like, hey, like my email disappeared and they took me off Slack. So like, I don't know what's coming your way. And then I like saw my boss calling and I was like, well, this isn't good.
This is not going to be a good conversation.
This is no longer a good day.
So then, cause that was a crazy, because I remember we had never met, but I had seen you around. And then after that, I don't know if you do this. I feel weird sort of camaraderie with comics, just especially comics I run into at mics and stuff like that. And I know a lot of comics talk about it, especially bigger comics, but I know from personal experience and then stories I've heard that they're not really about that life. They're like, oh yeah, we're all like one, we're all but that's if you're like selling out theaters and stuff, then you're one of them. But if you're like open mic, bar show, like getting gigs here and there at clubs, they're like, oh, we don't associate with you. But I'm to the extent now where like if I've seen you around and something, I'm always just like, oh my God, like is there anything? And I think, I don't know, I got the vibe, I can be a little creepy sometimes with that. Because like after the mic, I came up and I was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" By the way, I'm Brennan.
No, I didn't think you were creepy at all. And also, like, I was in shock, so I was like,
"Yeah,
whatever."
It was kind of a weird thing.
Well, I had never like lost a job before.
You've never lost a job?
No.
Have you? You've obviously quit jobs.
I've quit jobs. Yeah.
I've only ever been fired once, and apropos to the show, it's because I got promoted from server to manager. It wasn't even a promotion. asked me to be a manager for years at the first restaurant I ever worked at.
Yeah.
And I always said no. I was like, no, I'm a server. At the time, I was in high school. Then I was in college. And then after college, I was like, no, I'm going to do stand-up. Like, I'm not going to take the manager position. And then I relapsed, and I took the manager position. And I was showing up, like, drunk every day, which as a server, they're like, you little rascal.
Yeah.
But when you're a manager and you're in charge of, like, the safe and stuff, they kind of get weird about it. And
Yeah, that's so weird of them to be weird about that.
That was the only job I've ever been, like, actually, like, fired
Yeah.
from.
No, I was
I've
fired from
no-showed
one.
a bunch, but...
I was fired from one job in college. I worked at a bakery, and I didn't wear a bra one day, and they were like, you can't do that. And then they were like, you gotta go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They weren't like, go home and change? They were just
They
like,
were
get
just
out?
like, yeah, but I was like, just never even there. I was in college. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you didn't
It
care.
was- yeah.
Yeah, I've no-showed a lot. When I got my second DUI, I was working at a breakfast place.
Mm-hmm.
So
Classic.
I would go... I would like find another, like I was like, oh, if I just get a night job for 2 months, I can pay off this DUI, no problem. And with my resume, because I'd worked in restaurants for so long and I'm a pretty affable guy, I would get hired like on the spot. I'd make it all the way through training, which at restaurants takes, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then like my second night on the floor, when they would hand me that cash at the end of the night, I'd be like, I'm not coming back. So instead of saving to pay off my DUI, I would just take like my second night on the floor's pay and go get hammered like out somewhere, because I would treat myself. Because normally I would just get a handle and go home. But if I had actual like $200, I'd be like, all right, I'm going out.
Yeah.
And then I just would not show up. I did that like 3 different times.
Yeah, the server lifestyle, it's brutal.
It's not, you used to run in the server lifestyle, right?
Yeah, well, I feel like I am a product of it. My mom was a waitress.
Okay.
When she had me, and then she like managed a place
Yeah.
and so just like no, yeah, and then I like always worked in restaurants.
Yeah, so you know what 86
yeah.
means.
Oh yeah,
You're
yeah.
down.
Yeah, I've been working since I was 15. So
Yeah,
just,
me
like-
too. Well, I think I started at 14 at McDonald's. That's where that
Okay.
bit came from. But then once I got into restaurants at 15 as a busser, I was like, and then at 18 I moved up to server, and I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, you just make so much money.
Yeah, you make great money. And where I was working this like, chain restaurants in Florida, you would just get the cash that night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in New York it's different, especially because, and I'm sure nowadays it's different just because you deal with so many credit cards that everything goes on a check. But back then
Yeah.
it was like, I was 18 in 2006, and they would just hand me, like at the end of the
Cash
night,
money.
yeah, they hand you like $300 or $200, and you're like, oh, I'm the richest man alive.
Yeah.
You
I
asked
still
what-
feel that way.
You
Someone
asked-
gives me $100. I'm like, oh, big baller. I see.
I've got blue faces.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, so how, because we were talking about this before we started actually recording, how
Mm-hmm.
did you get into stand-up? Because you went to theater school, you said, or film school. Film school. Sorry,
Yeah.
I have so many theater people on
Yeah,
the show.
no, I would never catch me in theater school. But someone asked me this the other day, and I was like, basically, my whole life fell apart. So I was like, I might as well start stand up because I.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I started like a year and a half ago.
Were you like always into stand-up? Or
Yeah,
Did you, okay.
I was obsessed, and like every year of my 20s, I would like write it down. I'm still in my 20s, but for a few more months.
Lucky.
But every year of my 20s, I'd write it down like I'm gonna do stand up, and then like another year would go by.
Oh,
and
really?
I
So
would
you
do
were like
it.
that into it where you were
I
like,
was
this is something I
obsessed.
have to do. Yeah.
I would go watch open mics. I worked at Helium in Philly.
You would watch open mics.
Yeah, I would go watch comedy like every weekend in
Yeah.
Philly, and
Because you're originally from Philly, correct?
yeah, well, I lived there for 9 years.
Okay.
I'm from Pennsylvania. But yeah, I was just obsessed, and then like,
What got you into stand-up? I ask all my guests this just because it is such a niche thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the moment? Like for me, my cousin showed me Comedy Central Presents when I was 12, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Do you remember, did you have like a moment where you're like, oh, they just stand up there and with their words, they make me
yeah,
laugh?
my sister we had like a family desktop computer,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister showed me a clip of Pete Holmes. I think it was his JFL thing.
Okay.
Maybe, but then through Pete Holmes, I saw a clip of Chelsea Peretti,
Okay.
who is like, I love her.
Love Chelsea
Love
Peretti.
her. She's why I do comedy, but I
That's
just like
awesome.
saw the way that she was like talking about things that like I wanted to talk about, And I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Or like things that you don't like about yourself or
Yeah.
other people. Like you could be rude but be funny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, that's like, I want to do that.
Yeah. That's
Not that I want to
awesome.
be rude, but like, just like being able to be like, that's the problem with that. But like, you can do it because you're being funny.
Yeah, I have the same sort of sentiment, especially with that, because like Burr's one of my favorite comics, and it's because of the fact where he will. And I was actually just talking about this with Sam Appleman outside of Grizzly Pear like a few hours ago.
So
But
many fruits.
It's it's because
Joey
like,
Bananas was there too. Sorry.
Johnny Bananas
Johnny Bananas.
from the challenge. Shout out to the challenge.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't?
What's the challenge?
The real world. It started as the Real World Road Rouge Challenge on MTV.
Oh, I never watched MTV.
And then it slowly morphed into like the sixth major sport in America. Like these dudes get roided out and get jacked,
Whoa.
and these women are fucking like monsters. And then they go and do like these. It's like Survivor mixed with. Anyway, not important.
Sorry.
Johnny Bananas is one of the, like the big stars.
Sorry,
of
I
it, though.
derailed you.
No, but it was just that whole idea of like I see so much that makes me angry, and despite what everyone thinks about me with like going to jail and being from Florida and all this stuff, like I don't like confrontation.
Yeah.
Like I don't like a guy today. I was sitting on the subway and he like sat like on me, and I was like, well, I guess we're just gonna ride the subway like this because I'm not gonna say anything. Like I do not like confrontation. So the thing I love about stand up, and I try to do, is if something really frustrates me, I know I have no recourse.
Yeah.
Like if it happens, it happens. Like they're like screaming about it's not going to do anything. So my whole thing is like I love getting on stage and gauging the like. Doesn't this make you mad too?
Yeah, it's
like,
the best.
And then a lot of times, like I have a list. A lot of comics have a list. I have like a spite list in my head.
I have one written down.
Oh, you have it like
In this very app.
in this app. Yeah, I have a spite list where it's like one day when I have the platform, these are all the things I'm going to go after, or companies I'm going to go after, or like people to a lesser extent that I want to like, because there's so many times where people wrong us and we're just kind of like, well, I guess that's just it.
Yeah, no, I was brutally bullied.
Me too.
My special, I'm going to dedicate it to Joey Burkott,
Who's
my biggest bully.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I'm
That's
like,
fucking
this is
super
for you.
smart. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many people, and it's weird because we've won. Like,
Yeah.
you moved to New York, I moved to New York. Like, we've won.
I
But-
own nothing, but I'm killing it.
There's still, but it's you know what I mean? Like, that's
No, yeah.
because my dad said this when I went home. I think it was last Christmas, but he was like, "I'm so proud of you," and I got like, I was like, "You're crying. I'm not crying. You're
Yeah,
crying." And
that's sweet.
I was like, "Dad, I'm doing the same things I was doing in Jacksonville. Like, I have the podcast. I just do it in a studio now most of the time. I was like, I'm just doing mics and bar shows. And like, yeah, it's cool. I get up at the stand every once in a while, or I've gone up at the cellar before. Like I've done those things, but it's not like I'm not a paid regular. Like,
Yeah, but still.
but that, and he goes, Brennan, you are the hero in this story. Like
Yeah.
you moved to New York. He goes, do you know how many? He goes, because my dad can rip on guitar. He's like, I talked about like one day, hopefully this band will take off, or maybe I could do something with this. And I realized I was like, oh yeah, like all the times we think about those people who like tortured us
Yeah.
as kids. It's like, oh yeah, we're here. Like we're doing
Yeah.
it.
No, I have profound moments of gratitude because I almost didn't do stand up, and then like truly my whole life fell apart, and I was like, okay.
What was the thing that?
now-
What was it? A breakup? Was it like
yeah,
moving? Or?
I dated someone for 5 years and we broke up, and it was like really painful. And then I moved out of Philly, and I just like really was so depressed. Like there was like
When you moved out of Philly, did you move back home?
I moved back home, which like
Okay.
was always like I moved I moved out to go to college, and then I like took such a point of pride of like never
Yeah.
I'm never moving
Me
back
too.
home. That's my biggest like I never want to live in Easton, you know. And then I had to, because I just like really I couldn't stay in Philly. It's like the smallest city in the world. But yeah, and I was like just like fell into this really horrible depression.
And where did you do your first show, your first mic? Like, was it in Philly? Was it in New York? Like,
No,
what did you do?
I did the Comedy Cellar class because I wasn't living in New York yet, and so I didn't know how
How
to
far
like.
is Easton from the city?
It's like an hour 45 minutes.
An hour and 45.
Yeah,
So
so
you drove in
I
to do the
drove
Comedy
in,
Cellar
yeah.
class.
Yeah.
So
And
you
then,
finally did it.
and
You
I did
finally
that.
were like, okay, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
And then what was was the first show that you ever did, like the class show?
Yep, the class show, and then the second show I ever did was the industry room.
Okay, so back to back.
Back to back, and then I got some spots, and then I started doing. Then like, I didn't move here until May of 2022.
Okay.
And so then the first day I moved here, I went to a mic, and then I
First
just
day,
kept
just
going. Yeah.
put the boxes in the apartment. And
Yeah.
you're like, when you moved here, because for me it was a big deal coming from as far away as I came, because Florida's 1,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
For you, because it's only about a 2-hour drive, was it still like a big endeavor? Like obviously you still have to save money and get an apartment and do all that. Like,
well, I
did
got
you
a
have
job
plan?
here. I got a
Okay.
job here first, so I was commuting from Easton every day for 2 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So were you getting up at like 5 in the morning?
Yeah.
Holy
So I got a job as an
shit.
assistant to this very rich gay man. Doesn't matter that he's gay, but he did hate me and my physical appearance and would let me know it.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of bullies, write that name down on the list.
Oh, he's on there. Yeah, I like worked for these like incredibly wealthy people, and he was like an interior design. I shouldn't be saying this.
No one's gonna find a gay interior designer in New York City.
Yeah,
Good
right.
luck. Like, no one's
That's your
gonna find
demographic, right?
it. Yeah, totally.
That's your listeners. Yeah, I worked for these two really rich men, and it was crazy. They would just like buy rugs that were like more than my salary.
That's
and
I see that all the time at the restaurant because
It's
it's a swanky
crazy.
steakhouse.
Yeah.
and people will just, and it's not even like obscene. Like that's obscene, but like in my case, it's not even like crazy amounts of money, but it's enough money to where I'm like, if you just, instead of getting this dinner, if you just handed me that in cash, I'd be set for like 2 months.
it's wild.
Like I'm like, and you just drop that on a dinner.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. I really like. I had to like not work for him anymore because I just couldn't. I was like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
I just like hated. I'm like, my life is just living your life.
Were you still doing? Obviously, you're still doing like mics all the time and stuff.
So the first 2 months that I was like I just literally couldn't because I
Oh
was,
yeah, because it's a 2-hour drive, so you're coming in.
I was taking the
working.
bus, so it was
Yeah.
like
Oh shit, you were busing
I was
in?
taking the bus in.
Holy shit,
Yeah.
you really wanted it.
Yeah.
So then obviously you get the other job. When did you start like, okay, I'm gonna buckle down? Was that when you moved to New York? When you were like, I'm gonna buckle down and like start hitting mics and doing shows? And
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. So that May then.
Okay.
And I still worked for him for like another year.
Did you really?
They were I did the industry room a second time, like once I was like a few more months into comedy.
Yeah.
And they were my brings. Yeah, I brought them. And I went
Did
up
they love it?
Yeah, I mean like he was like supportive of my comedy. There was just like little things that I couldn't
Yeah.
deal with. Like it was a real
No, I know exactly
it was a
what you're
love
talking about.
hate. It
Yeah.
was like I liked him but like as a human, but then I like, couldn't deal with working for like the 1% in that
Yeah.
way.
The 1% of 1%.
Like I'm just
yeah.
like I'm just not yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's so weird. You can find out. I was doing a bit about this for a while, but when I worked in life insurance and stuff, it was easier to get people to sit down and talk about their morality than it is to get people to come to shows. So I always find it fascinating when like who does show up when you have a bringer. Like when I have a bringer and I invite all these people because there's so many people that you work with that you meet who are like, oh, when's your next show? When's your next show? And no one ever comes. So for me, it's always so. I say all that to say, like, the fact that they came is actually a pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he honestly like wanted to see if I was any good.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, I'm moving to the city to be a comic, and he was like, okay, like, he's been living here forever,
Yeah.
so you know.
Does that happen to you when people come to shows?
I
Like,
never invite people.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay, because that's happened to me a few times where people will come. And this, I remember the first time very clearly when it happened. I did this local access show. It was the St. Augustine Tonight Show. And I invited my sisters, and my uncle and aunt came, and I was like, oh boy, like it's technically a TV. And they set it up like a real TV tape.
Yeah.
Like there's a set and everything. And I was like, this is so cool. Golly gee willikers. And I remember getting off stage, and my older sister took me aside, and she was like, thank God. And I go, what? She goes, you're going to be fine. Like I was
Okay.
so worried that it was going to be a disaster. Because my sister
Yeah.
gets anxiety like I do. She's like, I know, like I've lived with you. Obviously, we grew up together. She was like, but stand-up is a totally different thing. Like I was so worried that if it went sideways, because I was so like blind, like I'm moving to New York, like I'm gonna do comedy. She was like, I was so worried that it was gonna be so bad.
Yeah, dude, that's what like working at Broadway and like being like at the like, you know, I'm still so new, but like now like working there and like seeing the Bringers or Industry Room.
Yeah, because you see the Industry Room every Saturday.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, sometimes it's like brutal, like seeing like there's always like a girlfriend there for her, you know, shithead boyfriend who wants to do comedy, and if he sucks, I just feel like I would hate to be her.
Because what do you say?
Yeah, I couldn't date someone. Like if I dated a comic, I couldn't. If they're not funny, I just couldn't.
Well, I say it all the time, and there's people who do comedy, and then there's comics. I think those are two different people.
Okay.
There's people who like sign up and go to open mics, and they try, and they try to write, and they do their best, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then there's people who are like, oh no, this is me, this is what I do. And I know. I mean,
I still don't. I say I do. I say, oh, I do stand up. I don't say I'm a comic yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just figured because, you know, moving to New York to be like, I'm going to do comedy, and then getting a job at the club and then working. I mean, I
just feel like it's going to feel so sweet when it is my job that I like want to save it.
Save it?
Yeah.
See, I went the opposite way. I did 2 open mics in 2009 and changed every social media handle to Brennan T. Comedy.
Yeah.
I was that guy.
I mean, I have it in my bio because I'm like, you know,
well, you need to because if people Google, So, but I was so hell bent on like I'm gonna do, and I was the guy because I was still drinking at the time. So I was the guy who was like doing an open mic like every 2 or 3 months. But telling everybody I'm a comic, like I'm gonna be, and I don't know. Part of me wants to say it's like, oh, because I knew deep down like that's my path.
Yeah.
But I think another part of me is I'm an attention-seeking shithead, and I was just like, that's way cooler than saying I wait tables.
Yeah.
And because I used to do it so often. I remember I got sober in 2013 and then relapsed in 2015, and I remember going to work. This is when I had one of those night jobs to pay off for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I told everyone I was a comic. And Dusty Slay, who's been on Netflix, who does stuff with Nate Bargatze now. He was in town. This is years ago, obviously, because he was doing like these like one-nighters and stuff. And the restaurant I was working at had like a big like private event space in the back, and they would do comedy there once a month. So they booked Dusty. Dusty shows up and he goes, hey, my wife is my feature, but I don't have an opener. And everyone at the restaurant goes, Brennan does comedy. And I hadn't done comedy in like a year and a half.
Did you even have 5 minutes?
I was wasted all the time. So I had a 5 minutes, but it was not put together because it was my drunk 5. You know, I don't know if you know, but I used to get on stage hammered all the time. So it was one of those.
I don't really know much about you.
Well, so it was one of those 5 minutes where it was like. And a lot of the stuff I did when I first started and then into my drinking and stuff was shock jock stuff.
Yeah.
Like really horrific. Like I can't even believe I even wrote that in a notebook. And they're all still sitting over there.
Love it.
Sometimes I go through them just to be like, oh, you piece of shit.
Was there any, or maybe there's like one nugget of genius?
Oh, there's some of, like one time I went to New Joke Wednesday at Comedy Shop and I just opened up an old notebook and I just started reading it. And some of them people were like, that's actually really good.
Yeah, you never know.
But my bosses were there because it's the restaurant I work at. So I was like, oh, I can't do any of my dark, like crazy, like, shit. So I just got on. He said, do 5 minutes and then just bring up my wife. And I got up there and I did an Arnold impression, Schwarzenegger. I did a Christopher.
I was thinking, hey, Arnold.
Oh, no. An Arnold Schwarzenegger impression, a Christopher Walken impression, which is just me going, ow, ow. Like I don't say anything else. I just go, ow. And then I did like 2 other jokes. And in my head, I was like, Brennan, you can get off whenever you want. Like, you don't have to do the 5 minutes.
Oh, shit.
And I got off and I brought up his wife and Dusty's standing in the back. And I go, hey, man, I probably went a little light, but like I have to get back to work. Like I'm in my work uniform.
Oh, no.
And he showed me, as he's showing me the phone, he goes, man, I told you to do 5 minutes. And it said 3:47. And I was like,
oh, no.
And that it was a fucking disaster. But it's just one of those things where it's like,
but that's like everybody has a story. Like
yeah,
that.
but I mean that goes back to what we were talking about, where I'm jealous of you being like, I'm gonna save telling everyone I do because I did it too early and I got fucked. I screwed myself because of it. Because when you tell people that, they have a certain expectation of you because it's like, oh, this must be a real thing.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe sometimes I can be too precious about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Love
like,
that.
it's so important to me and I do want it to be
Special.
my career. So
Yeah.
I'm like, but you know, it can border on like, okay, get over yourself. Like,
see, I'm probably the wrong person to say that too. This is an echo chamber because I'm the most pretentious. Like I value like I make jokes in front of my girlfriend Tracy and she'll be like, that's not like, don't like, that's not appropriate. And I'm like, I'm a comic. That's what I do.
She's not a comic?
No. She's a teacher.
Oh.
So, and I get to, it got to the point where, because I will make jokes about anything. And most of the time they're not funny because, you know, you're just riffing off the top of your head. And sometimes it can just be gross and sometimes it can be offensive and sometimes it is funny. And sometimes they'll do that thing where they giggle, but they're like, that's not funny.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it's funny. But when we first started dating, I had to be like, listen, appropriate, inappropriate, like topic or whatever, like I'm going to make a joke about it because that's that's my defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So if I get uncomfortable, I just make a joke. Like I'm not doing it to make you upset. I'm not doing like just
like you're
know
telling
that.
her you have herpes or something. Like I actually have to, before this moves forward, I need to tell you something.
I need to let you know. So you get to New York, you do the Comedy Cellar, and then you do the Industry Room, and then once you like actually move in here, what was your whole like vibe? I guess is what I'm asking. Were you like doing open mics as much as possible? Were you trying to get booked on things? Like you were just running around? Like what were you doing?
I was just like, I'm gonna do everything. So I'd do like 2 or 3 mics a night, and just, I mean, I don't even know if I've like looked up yet, really.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I've just look down and just keep going.
Just keep grinding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it. We were talking about this in the elevator on the way up, but I talked about this with Oscar Aiden when he was on the podcast. But
so funny.
Oh, I love Oscar. He him and I, not a debate really, but just like you know, just people have different viewpoints. And I was like, oh well, I've been doing comedy for so long. When I moved here, like I do a lot more hanging than mics because I say it all the time. Like sometimes mics can get to a point where they're detrimental. Because if people have all heard the bit like 5 or 6 times, it could be a great bit, but no one's going to laugh.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you start second guessing some of your better bits because you're like, oh, nobody laughed. The last like 2 mics I've done this, nobody's laughed. And I think I can get in my own head about it. And so I was like, oh, I do a lot more hanging, especially with my work being so close to the bigger clubs. And he was a big proponent of like, no, you go to mics, like you do the work, you do the, and I was like, oh, yeah, but I did that already. And his whole thing was like, well, you didn't do it in New York. Like, you have to reset.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's probably the approach I would take if I started somewhere else and came here.
Yeah.
But I also, like, get booked the most through going to mics.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know.
See, it's funny you say that because the opportunities...
I'm an over-preparer.
Yeah. The opportunities I've gotten to go up at the stand in the cellar are actually, believe it or not, from the restaurant, not from mics. Yeah. Because like I told you, we're kind of right in between the two. So we get a lot of like comics and like the managers and stuff like that. They come into the restaurant.
Oh, nice.
And so, and if I see anybody, this is why I don't talk about the exact place where I work, because I don't want a bunch of comics coming in for free shit. If I see anybody affiliated
free
with
steak now, that'd be crazy.
If I see anyone affiliated with comedy, I go to the back and I'm like, chef, one of my very good friends is at table so-and-so. Can we send a bunch of stuff out? And it's gotten to the point where my chef is like, how many friends do you have? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I always try to hook people up. And like, I remember giving someone a piece of cake and they were like, hey, do you want to do my show at this super big club? And I was like,
shit.
Yeah, I would love to. So that's why I've always been like a big proponent of the hang.
Yeah. I mean, I try to do both, but like, I just feel like until I have like a solid 15 minutes that I love through and through, like.
Yeah. Well, and also, like you said, you'd rather be over-prepared because you don't want to get into a Dusty Slay situation.
Yeah.
Where someone asks you to open for them and you're like, how long am I doing?
Yeah. But also I work at Gotham too, and I don't get spots there.
Yeah.
But I try to just like be...
Well, yeah, working at both those clubs, I'm sure you run into a lot more people than, say, like just going to mics.
Yeah, well...
As far as like established comics.
Yeah, Gotham is good because I I know I'm not going to get any spots there. They don't give spots through work.
Yeah.
So I can just like kind of try to kiki with like older comics and
Jerry Seinfeld when he comes in.
Oh yeah, we're besties. He's kind of my mentor.
Jerry, what's the deal?
What's the deal? Yeah.
Do you see him a lot there? Because I know that's his like club that
he drops in on like the new talent nights.
Yeah.
And
loves bumping the young kids.
Does it. He does a Q&A and I learned so much from him.
It's so funny whenever people ask about Seinfeld and he goes, "Oh, the 30-year-old show." Mm-hmm. From like you're asking. I said you can ask me anything you want. You're asking about a 30-year-old sitcom.
He gets aggro.
Yeah, he gets kind of about it. So I wanted to ask you. You sent me quite a few stories.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you can ask. I thought it would be interesting because I was sober for 2 years.
I know. I actually wanted to start with that.
Yeah.
So tell the listeners how. So when did you? Just for a little background, when did you first start drinking?
The first time I drank, maybe it's my senior year of high school, and I visited my sister at Temple.
Okay, go Owls.
Go Owls, and I had 9 beers, 9 PBRs, and I threw up in a sweater, and I was like, "This is living."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that because a lot of times I have guests on and they go, "The first time I drank, it went really, really bad, and I didn't drink again for like 5 years." But you were like, "Let's fucking go."
I was like, "This is exactly what my brain wants."
You and me both.
And yeah, I was just like off to the races, and I was like, "Oh, like," and also like I saw people from my high school there too.
Yeah.
And
This Temple's in Philadelphia?
Yeah. Oh wait, no, this was
Pennsylvania.
This was my freshman year of college. Sorry.
Where did you go? Did you go to Temple as well?
I ended up at Temple, but I went to Arcadia.
Okay.
Which is like a small private school.
So you were, as a freshman in college, you're visiting your sister at Temple.
Yeah. And she.
So you didn't drink at all in high school?
No,
wow.
I was like such a loner in high school.
Yeah.
And just like always just doing my own thing. I was like an 80-year-old woman in high school. I would just like, all I want to do is like drive around, smoke cigarettes, go to coffee shops.
So you were smoking cigarettes but not drinking?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And also like I feared my parents so much. Like I would never want to like fuck up in that way.
So then you're a freshman.
Like I wanted to be a good kid.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you were a great kid.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the smoking cigarettes.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to be out.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you get to Temple with your sister and you're like, let's fucking go.
Let's go. And people were like, you're so funny. And like, I was so like because I'm just a terribly anxious person. Yeah. Like, the thoughts in my mind were like gone for a little. I was like, this is a break. This is nice.
I say it all the time. I hated alcohol growing up because I saw what it did to people around me. And I was like, I don't want to have any part of this poison.
Yeah. Well, also like my dad, I've never seen my dad drink.
Oh, really?
But his dad was an alcoholic.
Well, everyone in my family can get after it, but like, and I've talked about it before, but like my ex-stepdad was like a different level of like kind of scumbag in that sort of sense when he would drink. And, you know, people yell and scream. You know, I'd get in fights with not physical altercations, but I'd get in yelling matches with people and I couldn't figure out why, because I'd be like, why are they getting so angry? Yeah. And then you realize it's like, oh, it's the alcohol. So I was like, oh, I'll never drink. But to your point, my senior year of high school, my twin sister was having like some people over and she invited me. And I wasn't close with them. I was a loner too. I wasn't close with anybody in my family at that point. And I remember being like, oh my God, like both my sisters were super popular. So I was like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Like I'll hang out with cool kids. Yeah. And I remember the first shot of 99 Bananas and like that warmth going down into your stomach. Yeah. And as soon as it hit me and all my anxiety just went away. And I was like, okay, I see why everyone does this all the time now. This is awesome.
Dude, yeah. That night I had like the most PBRs. And then I was literally in a circle chugging whiskey. And everyone was like, Chloe. And I was just like, I was like Rena's little sister. So it was like even funnier.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I was just like, yeah, like,
I remember going to my older sister's apartment when she was living in Jacksonville, and I was still like, you know, I was in college, and I would like come back to visit, and I would try to drink with like her and her boyfriend at the time, and at that point I was drinking, like I'd stopped playing football and like my addiction started to take over, so I was getting like hammered, but I was like, I'm the cool little brother who can keep up with the older kids
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
And I was just getting fucking wasted with
Yeah.
people. And so what happened from there? So were you like, I'm going to party every weekend, or like what happened?
Yeah, I was just blackout a lot.
Yeah. And then when did the sobriety kind of take
So
effect?
then once I graduated college,
Okay, so you had like 4 years of
yeah, 4 years and then another one. Because then I like graduated college and I just like got a job at a coffee shop, and like my friends were people who like didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And like they had already been out in the world doing like
Were these your friends from high school? Or
these were
friends
like my
from...
friends that I made at the coffee shop that I worked
Okay.
at.
Yeah.
And so then my life, like, because I was like, didn't know, I was just so like aimless, you know,
Yeah.
like I just got a job at a coffee shop, and then our life became like we'd go to the coffee shop, you know, all the bartenders would come in around 3 when their shifts were going to start.
Yeah.
We'd hook them up with coffee, and then I worked in Old City, so like every night we were just like out running.
Oh, so the bartenders would come in before they went in.
Yeah,
You'd hook them up
we'd
with
hook them up with
and then
coffee.
you'd get off and go to the bars,
and then
they
we'd
would
go
hook
to
you up.
just like Philly, just so much drinking in Philly, just like every night we'd just like be running around, just like
having a great time,
having so much fun. Actually,
I mean, I've talked about this with, I think Trousseau was the last person I talked to about this, Brandon Trousseau, but it's the lifestyle.
Yeah,
It's that party lifestyle is one of the, is, you know, alcohol was and is incredibly difficult to not, it's very hard to not drink for me,
Yeah.
especially on certain days. But the thing that I always miss the most, and this might sound sad to some of the listeners, but it's being able to just fucking let it go, like let it rip.
yeah,
Even when I would come home, like when I worked at the breakfast place, and I would come home with a handle of vodka and a pack of Newports, and I would just start pouring myself shots and just watching like some dumb show on Netflix, Burn Notice, which was my favorite show to watch and drink to. And then just every time they said like a cool line, just do a shot. Like I was like, this is the greatest life
yeah.
I could ever live. Like I'm never going to die.
Yeah, that is like how that when it's so fun, it's fun. Like
Yeah.
when like we were just like, you know,
Young, wild, and free.
running around. I like dated this like skater, you know, and like
you're fucking living an Avril Lavigne song.
Oh my god. Okay, first time on stage, really? I lip synced Skater Boy at my 4th grade talent show, and the music skipped, and then I didn't know what to do, and then I ran off stage. And that will be incorporated in my first special in some way.
Oh yeah,
to redeem
you gotta
myself.
come up to says he's a skater.
Yeah.
Boy, says he-
So
maybe
brutal.
we'll send this to Avril. We'll cut this, send it to her.
Avril, I love you.
Yeah.
Still.
The internet's a big place. You'd be shocked. I put up a clip about me doing that Mighty Ducks joke, and fucking Emilio Estevez liked it on Instagram.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and I was like, fucking Coach Bombay, quack quack, baby.
There we go.
The internet's a big place, so we'll send this to Avril.
Wait,
You were saying how you
Oh,
were
yeah.
living this crazy fun life.
Yeah, fun. Just like, I mean, fun but aimless,
Yeah.
and like, just I don't know. But then I also have a lot of like a really bad depression that
Yeah.
I wasn't handling, and I had like trauma I wasn't handling,
Yep.
and then it got like not fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you said it when it was fun, it was really fun.
And when it was bad, it was bad.
Yeah.
And so then I feel like sobriety.
What brought you into-
Philly is so small. One of my friends, so actually someone who was friends with my boyfriend at the time, she was sober, and there was
The
this
skater?
like, yeah, there was this like group of like cool tattooed girls in Philly who were all like getting sober. It was like
Mm-hmm.
the thing to do. So, and I was like, I'm always like looking for community, which like,
And how old? You're 23 at this point?
yeah, I was like probably 23, 24.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then I got sober, and it was like totally.
Was there something that I'm curious, but just because I'm obviously in the rooms now, but coming in and out and everything like that, there's normally a moment. Now, I've talked to people on the show who have been sober for a long time or who were sober at one point, and some of them, they're like, no, it's just I woke up one day and I was kind of like, this fucking sucks, and I was like, I don't want to do this, so then I went to a meeting. And then there's people like me where I woke up in a hospital and a doctor was like, you should be dead. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is a big red flag. So for you, was there a moment where you were like, yeah, I got to figure this out. Like, I don't like
yeah,
this
I mean,
anymore.
my life was chaos, and like it was bad. Like I was like, I was in the psych ward. So I'm dropping the psych ward stories. I was in the psych ward so many times in Philly that at one point I went in by myself, And the security guard was like, "Where's your sister?"
Why were you going so often?
I just wanted to die.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something.
Sorry. Is this like a sad
No,
podcast?
no.
Sorry.
That's something I'm very familiar. Look.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if you want me to. It's like fun drinking stories now. I'm like.
Well, I always say best and worst.
Oh, best. That's true. That's true.
This is more of a storytelling show. It's
Yeah.
not like a. Plus, like we were saying earlier, like. I mean, that is funny that the security guard was
Yeah,
funny.
I think it's so funny now. I was like on the frequent flyers plan at like.
Why were you going because of obviously it's like self-harm and like you didn't want to live anymore?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the reason I've gone too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always get so uppity about it.
I have so many grippy socks.
Yeah.
They're really good
I
to
got the red ones
moisturize.
right there.
Oh yeah, you can do a nice foot mask with them.
Oh, I didn't even think about
Yeah,
that.
man.
So was it going to the psych ward where you were finally like, oh, I want to get sober? Was it the girls that were friends of your boyfriend? Like, what was the final thing? Like, when you walked into your first meeting, what was that from?
Really what got me sober was I started going to this meeting in Rittenhouse in this beautiful building with just a bunch of really good people and one woman who became my sponsor, and we became very, very close. She just like taught me how to live in a way, like the program. I like go back and forth if I want to go back into I don't know, like at the time I really needed it.
Yeah.
Like I
provide structure.
Yeah, in a way that like no one had ever
I feel the same way. Like I
showed me.
It saved my life, and I say that all the time. And it's not for everybody. And
Yeah.
it's a super secret, so we never.
Oh yeah,
We got to be careful.
Sorry.
But no, fuck it. We're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, everybody.
AA.
But yeah. I mean, it saved my life because there were so many times. My older brother used to say this when I was growing up. He said the hardest part about being, because my brother's like a super genius, and he goes,
Yeah.
the hardest part about being so smart is you always know how the movie's going to end. Like, in the case of life. Like, you're always like, oh, hopefully that person doesn't disappoint me. And they are.
Yeah.
And deep down, you're like, they're going to fuck me. Or like at work when you go in and you're like, oh, that's weird. Like even little things. You're like, there's no closer on the schedule and I was the last one in, but I'm not supposed to be closing. You're like, I guess I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, no, we'll figure it out. And you're like, I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I say that to say, like in AA, I'd go in and they'd be like, oh, you'll be elevated to the fourth dimension and your life will be better. And I go, my life, I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy of it. My life will never be all this happiness and magic you're talking about. And in my head, because I would always think about what my brother used to say about, like, I know how this ends. I would always, and then I would relapse and I'd be like, see, I fucking told you.
Yeah.
And it took me forever to finally be like, hey, why don't you just listen to what they're saying?
Yeah.
Because I was so hell bent on, I know I'm going to fail, so why even try kind of a mentality.
That's my default, really,
Yeah.
is like thinking I know everything. But at the time, I was just broken enough that like everything they said I'd listen to.
Yeah.
And it truly saved me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's what it takes what it takes, but, you have to hit a bottom.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah. And then I was sober for like 2 years. And
Were you like super active in the program, or were you
super
just kinda,
active?
okay.
Yeah. I went every day.
You said you got a sponsor and everything.
Yeah, I was in it. But then
what happened?
my next bottom, where I started comedy as a result of it, I fell back into like I'm like just starting to process this period of my life, like
You
just
don't
like
have to if you don't want to.
oh yeah, no, but just like then I started drinking again. But now like
Well, what was I want to ask you about this, because as someone who's relapsed quite a few times,
Yeah.
and I talk about it in my one man show, is the first time I relapsed after like I say extended sobriety. It was 2 weeks away from my 1 year chip, and me and my roommate sat out on a balcony and we convinced each other that we had overreacted by going to rehab, that we were only in our mid 20s, that it was like, this is crazy.
yeah.
Like, who's sober at 25? He was 24. Like, this is nuts. And we're like, we learned so much from rehab and going to meetings and stuff. We'll figure it. Like, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first shot I did after that conversation was like an hour later. I went to the liquor store, came home, and I remember taking the shot thinking I was going to like blow up into a million pieces, or like I would do the shot and my phone would ring and my sponsor would be like, I know you're drinking.
Yeah.
But none of that happened. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, we're okay. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
And then that was probably the worst thing that could have happened because it's like, this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it, like you said, when it was bad, it got
Yeah,
real
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I didn't do comedy,
You'd be a lush again?
yeah, for sure.
Well, you found purpose.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing is finding purpose.
Yeah, and comedy gives me structure and
Well, and I say all the time,
yeah.
because people in my family, like, you know, and I've talked about it before, but like, you know, we're Eastern European. We're all like, we can drink. Like, everyone in my family can drink.
Yeah.
Like, but everyone's always had something more important than drinking. So, like, for my twin sister, it's her family. For my older sister, for a long time, it was her job. Like, everyone's always had something where if they had to stop drinking for that thing, they could.
Yeah.
I never had that. I was always like, drinking is like, I don't care about work, family, friend, nothing. Drinking is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Which is when I realized, like, oh, I've got a problem because there's nothing more important than, like, I had my ex-fiance, like, I could not get in. This is the person I cared about the most in the world. And she was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was just like, all right, see you later.
Yeah.
Glug, glug, glug.
Addiction is hell.
Yeah, it's fucking
That's why, like, when I hear I was like listening to this thing about like handling like homelessness and like how like, oh, well, you should be able to live here, but and then let them do drugs because otherwise they won't go here. And I'm like, well, like, I get that, but also like people don't want to be addicted to things.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's hell. Like,
I say it all the time.
people
like,
need structure.
It's being an addict is somewhat of a superpower in the sense that when I tell people my schedule, they're like, that's nuts. But I'm like, I can do that because that's how I'm wired. So like, I have to go to the gym 6 days a week. So I will wake up.
Me too. That's why I look like
But
this.
I'm saying like, it's just the addict mentality. So like, I will wake up at 5:30 after going to bed at 1, but I will wake up at 5:30 if I have to, if my day's crammed.
Yeah.
And then I will go to work. And then when like today, I was up at 6:30, went to the gym, went into work, worked lunch, hit 3 mics, and now I'm recording with you. And that's not an unusual. That's like a normal Wednesday. And when you tell people that, they're like, "That's crazy." It's like, yeah, but I'm like, for me, it's not insane.
I
like
have
this
to be
is
doing
what I
this.
do.
Yeah.
But and that's why, like, it is crazy because once I found something that I was addicted to that was dangerous, like cocaine or booze or food, in a lot of senses for me, like especially sugar, like it can be super detrimental. And then people are like, oh, that's like terrible. But then you put that same brain, that same mentality into something that's positive or something that I'm passionate about, like comedy. And people are like, you're really hustling. You're really working hard. It's like, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it comes from the same well.
Yeah, it's water from the same well. So you had mentioned when you kind of like went into this next phase of your life, what was... I wanted to ask you, what was the thing? Did you like make a conscious decision? Like, did you like break up with your sponsor and like say, I'm going to stop going to meetings, or did you just kind of fade out as far as that situation? If you don't mind my asking, because I know that's a personal question, but.
No, I think it was just like, black and white thinking can be hard for me. And so an AA kind of like made me, like I already always feel guilty about everything, and so then it was just like, I think I need to take a step back because I don't know I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel like I'm disappointing people, and I need to like just figure out what I want so that I don't have to like feel guilty.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
I say it to people I've sponsored before where they go, maybe I'm not, maybe this, maybe like I want to figure it out. I'm always like, hey, hats off to you. Go find. I had to find out. Go find out. Like,
that's
go
what
figure it out.
and that's what my sponsor would always say. She'd be like, "Go do more research." Like, and maybe that's the phase I'm in now, where I'm like, "What is my relationship with alcohol?" Because like, it's so. I never thought that I could like drink and not ruin my life, but then also AA lives in the back of my brain where it's like, well, it's coming.
Always, yeah.
You know, and I'm not foolish enough to think that it couldn't get bad. So that's why I'm like, okay,
You're
well,
vigilant about it, yeah.
I'm super vigilant, and I take time off. Like I took like 2 months off, and you know, I'm figuring
that's
it
the
out.
thing. People who can do that, I'm envious is the wrong word, but I have the utmost respect for that because I'm like Frank the Tank in Old School. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No.
But Will Ferrell character, there's a funny scene where he's like talking. He's like, they're like at a party in college, even though he's like 40, and they're like, "What are you gonna do this weekend?" And they're all like crazy kids, and he's like, "I don't know. We might go to the Home Depot. You know, we might go shopping. We might pick out some flooring. I don't know if we'll have time." Like he's this like upstanding, like great husband. And then they're like, "Oh, do this drink," and then he's like, "No, no, no," and they're like, "Do it." And so he does one, and the second it hits his mouth, he turns into this completely different person.
Yeah.
He literally screams, "Once it hits your lips, it's just so good." And it's like a funny movie, but like I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Like people who meet me who have never seen me drunk are like, we couldn't imagine some of these stories that you tell. And I go, you have no idea. The second it touches my mouth, I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
And just turn into a completely different person. So it is. I find it fascinating when people are like, yeah, you know, I take a month off here, I take 6 months off there and stuff. Because I'm like, oh shit. Like the only times I ever stopped when my addiction was like when I was a full-blown alcoholic was getting arrested or going to the hospital.
Yeah.
Those are the only times I would stop drinking.
Yeah, that's...
Which was insane.
But I always like see people, if I see someone like out on the street who's just like, you know, in the bag or whatever, I'm like, that could be me. Like I still don't feel above it.
Yeah,
like
100%.
So I'm really in like a exploratory phase of like, can I be someone who drinks? I don't know.
Well, that's good that you're figuring it out. I wanted to ask you because you had mentioned the homeless people earlier, and you had a story that you wanted to tell me about a church.
Oh, okay. This is this just came.
You got bamboozled. It sounded like from what you sent me.
This is my downfall. I love weird guys. Like any guy who's like kind of weird, maybe an artist or something. I'm like, yeah, that's my man. That's my future husband. We're going to have a love that nobody else has ever experienced before. And I met, this is like, it is, but then
I think that all the time.
But then I go on a date with them and I'm like, oh, you're just weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always see it through a lens.
Romanticize it in your head.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I know you.
We're gonna have a love that changes the cosmos.
Yeah. I'm like, you're my twin flame. And it's like, they are psycho.
Yep.
But thinking back to the stuff I used to do in Philly, I'm like, I really don't know how I'm alive. Because just so many nights I just wake up, I'm like, where am I? You know, just crazy. And I remember I met this guy, like he came into the coffee shop, whatever, like I was working in Old City, everyone just ends up knowing each other. So this is when you were ripping and running. And I'm like, oh, whatever. Me and my friends, we're having this night with him. He's like, let's go back to my place. I think this guy is like some like genius artist or something. And we go back to his place, and it's this abandoned church attic.
And you're like,
and
oh
there's
my
like
God,
nothing in it.
This guy is so
mysterious. I'm like, this is a sick pad. Like, I'm like, this is like, there's exposed brick. I'm crashing.
This is a sick pad.
But that's what, because like if there
looking around.
But if there was furniture and stuff in it, it would be. But it was a abandoned church attic. Like that's.
Is it like a big cathedral church or like a mom and pop
and it was
church?
like on the water and stuff.
Oh my God, that is pretty sick.
It's so sick, but it wasn't his home. Like he was squatting there. In hindsight, I can see that now.
So.
But because this guy dressed cool.
Yeah.
And like, you know.
How long did it take for you to figure it out? Like, did you figure it out
So then I'm thinking I'm into this guy. And my friend who's way.
The universe is telling you you're into this guy.
Yeah. But my friend at the time, she was way more street smart than me.
Yeah.
And I don't know. She was like, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, what? Why? Like, love of my life is on the line. And she's like, this is dangerous. Like, we're going now.
This is dangerous.
And like, she probably saved.
The title right there.
She probably saved my life. And then, okay, so then we.
So how?
But wait.
Go ahead.
Cut to 3 weeks later. I don't know the timeline. A short time after, I see him like begging for change.
Yeah. Did you go like, oh my God,
I was
Joey,
just like,
what are you doing?
No, I just felt like a pit in my stomach, and I was like, what if I hooked up with that guy? Like, that's crazy. Like,
that's nuts. There's so many things that are spiraling in my head. Like, he has so much swag. that
Yeah,
he has
why
no
do you have
place
so
to
much
live, and he
swag?
was like, "Yo, like come back to my pad." Like,
He was a formerly swaggy person who just
holy swaggy.
got to keep the clothes. I don't know, like, but
You got to
mean,
turn that into a bit. Formerly swaggy.
You know what? It actually like it's funny, but like I just remembered that, and it's like scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
See, and I find that fascinating. I gotta stop saying that. Fascinating. I say that too much on the podcast, but I do find it very intriguing that we have lived some of these stories, and we are fortunate enough to be able to tell them on a podcast. Because I have friends.
Yeah.
I'm sure, much like you do, I have friends that are dead.
Yeah.
Like very close friends that are gone.
Yeah.
And it's because of this same lifestyle we're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's 100% eye opening to be like, I could have died. But it's also hilarious that this guy had enough, cojones to be like, yo, come back to my house.
Or that I don't know what my problem was. I don't know.
You were looking for love.
And still am.
Shout out.
If
Social
you're out
media's
there,
in the show notes.
maybe that guy got his shit together. I don't know.
Maybe.
Probably.
I mean, I've been
not.
homeless before and got my shit together.
Well, he did have the church.
He had a spot.
So
He was running that church.
Yeah.
So how
maybe he
long
was
did
the
it-
pastor. I don't know.
How long did it take? So you never thought about it in the moment. You didn't realize until after when you saw him on the street.
That's when it clicked in
Yeah.
my head that I was like, he's not Basquiat. Like,
Yeah.
this is.
Good pull.
Yeah. But like in my head, I'm like, he's like this dangerous artist.
Yeah.
You know?
God, that's I couldn't imagine. I mean, I've
Terrifying.
it's not that I can't imagine it because I've done, I don't want to say shady shit like that before, but I have stretched some truths to make myself seem more appealing. Like I was a scout team player when I played college football, but back when I was like trying to get girls and stuff, you'd think I was the fucking star quarterback.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you stretch, because if you Google me, like the ESPN thing comes up and all that stuff comes
Yeah.
up.
Oh, okay.
So people who don't know sports wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah. I mean, I do that. I say, hey, I'm not like other girls. I'm really chill. I don't get attached.
You do that?
They buy it, hook, line, and sinker.
Fucking idiots.
Yeah. No one does.
God, my ex, it was funny because she was the exact opposite. She was like, oh, I'm like real independent. Like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. And I honestly thought like, yeah, right. Like, we'll see. Once you get a taste of the Brentster, like we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
She was 100% like one of the most independent people I've
Yeah.
ever met. And it drove me, because I'm codependent. And so,
Yeah.
which is something I work on. But it would drive me crazy because you don't know anxiety until you're living in a city where the bars don't close and your girlfriend goes, I'm going to go out for the night, and then just radio silence for
yeah.
like 12 hours because I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. Well, before I started doing comedy and I just like had no purpose in life, men were my purpose, or just like my world would revolve around a guy.
Yeah.
Now I'm so
You're busy.
like no one can like get me.
Yeah. Well,
Not that anyone's trying, but like I am like truly like
yeah, you're in it.
yeah, I'm in it.
I mean, that's what I have to. With Tracy, my girlfriend, now and I remember saying this to someone at work, and they were like, "That's lame." But we have to like schedule our time we're gonna hang out because
Yeah.
she's a teacher, so she works during the day, and I'm a night person. Between comedy, and serving, I'm out at night. Like
Yeah.
my day doesn't so we have to schedule the time. And I like people at work will be like, that's so lame. You have to schedule. And I go, if I don't schedule it, like if we don't schedule it, we just won't see each other.
yeah, I live by a calendar. My Google
Yeah.
calendar is crazy.
I've got 3. I've got the calendar on my phone. I've got
Yep.
reminder set, and I have a paper back calendar hanging right above my computer.
Yep.
Because how often do we like space something and then your phone's like, alert, don't forget, in an hour you have this, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
So I have so many reminders because it's like we have so much going on.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone doesn't live by a calendar.
Yeah, I work with people where like they, and I shouldn't say that. I mean, we've all worked with people where they've got like the fun stuff that they do, and then they've got their job, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And they live with their significant others. So, you go to work from 9 to 5, you come home, your girl's there, your boy's there, your whoever's there, and then you're like, all right, cool. Do you want to go out tonight? No, let's stay in. You get the weekends to hang out. So like you don't have to schedule stuff.
Yeah.
But
That's
for
true.
us, especially with what we do, it's like, no, we're going like a million miles an hour.
Yeah. That's
at
why
all
like I
times.
have to schedule a time off.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
Because
so
I've talked
that's,
about this
like,
on
what I
my
have
other
to do tonight.
podcast.
Because my, oh my God, I'm hot.
Well, because I
Sorry.
asked you, I said, "What are you doing tonight?" And you were like, "Nothing." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, is that like by?" And you go, "Yeah, I have to schedule time off."
Yeah, because my anxiety is like, sorry, it's
No,
probably
you're
terrible
good.
for audio. Resync.
I'm keeping that in.
Okay. What was I saying?
We were talking about scheduled time off
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
of your anxiety.
I had, well, yeah, because I fainted on stage. I had like a panic
Tell
attack.
that story.
I had a panic attack 2 weeks ago because my anxiety
Where was
was
this
so bad.
Broadway.
No, Mob Bringer.
Okay.
The like
the Monday show.
the ones they do where you can like sign up, whatever.
Yeah.
That I just had full, because I had been like having these mini panic attacks.
Yeah.
And then it just all.
I didn't do any cardio today, and my sense says that I have done 18 minutes at maximum heart rate.
Whoa.
But that's what I'm saying.
Through
like,
anxiety.
yeah, my anxiety fucking does not play around.
Yeah, I just got that was like a huge wake up call.
Yeah.
That I'm like, this
So
is
you went to
not.
the doctor, and you're like, hey, this is kind of a thing.
Yeah, now I gotta
So
go
what-
pick up.
So I just wanted to set the scene. 5 minutes set, you're 2 minutes in, and you just.
I'm like a
boom.
minute in, and I just start looking at the crowd, and my thoughts are racing.
Is everything like
Everything's
closing?
slow. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I used to be a big fainter.
Oh, really?
From anxiety, but
I
then
was
I
never
haven't.
a fainter. I was a throw upper from anxiety.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Yeah,
But
that's my big thing.
I hadn't fainted in years. So I was like, I'm cured. But then like the past few months, I started having these like mini panic attacks, and then it was just that was the big show.
What happened? Did everybody
Oh,
did someone drag you off the stage? Did you catch yourself?
my
or-
friend was there, and he like came on the stage and like got me, and I just
Were they
went
like, can you
home.
come back next week and do that same thing? That was
I
awesome.
know. They didn't even reach out actually.
Wow.
No, but some comics did.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're
glad
doing
you
better.
didn't know. Maybe I shouldn't have said that because it was super mortifying. I took off work the next day and I was just like,
Yeah, I passed out on stage. I'm not
Yeah.
coming in.
I just sobbed, moped around for a
Nope.
day.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I wanted to ask you because you said you just went to the doctor and you got some medicine for it and stuff. You've taken anti-anxiety medication in the past.
Yeah. You're like, you're nuts, right?
No, not at all. I wanted to ask you because you had sent me a story about Xanax.
Oh, well, that
and
was
all you wrote down
unprescribed.
was the time I did Xanax.
I call that the lost day.
the lost day.
I don't think what I took was Xanax, but this is another thing that truly scares me. It's not even a funny story, so I don't know why I wrote it down.
No, I just
But
tell it.
The girl, I was like working with someone, same coffee shop.
God, this coffee shop.
yeah.
You want to shout them out? What was it?
No.
Is it still there?
Actually, it was like an evil coffee shop that was like owned by like
Oh,
a real
fucking
estate developer. I don't want to
Yeah.
give them any credit. I don't know. I decided I was going to be someone who tried Xanax, and it
And
was
this
like,
girl at work had it?
no, I bought it from someone.
Okay.
I don't even remember, but
Xanax will do that.
yeah, and I just remember it was like me and my ex at the time, and we had just started. We were like in a big love bubble, started falling in love, and so it was just like everything's fun. So
Was he an artist?
he was an artist, yeah, and
What was his art? What was his medium?
he like draws shit. I don't
Okay.
know. I think he's engaged now. Shout out, congrats, guys. We took these bars of Xanax, and then
Where are you? Is this at
Philly.
work or after work?
no,
or
this was like day off. You
Okay.
know, it was
Smart.
like yeah, it was summer. It was like I think it was it 4th of July. It was.
And you were like, "Hey, I got these.
It might
Let's
have been
try
more. It was like one of those summer holidays,
Yeah.
and I just remember that like we went to a barbecue, and I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And then the next day, the people were like, "Thanks for coming to the barbecue." I was like, "What?" Like I really don't remember anything we did.
Really?
Yeah.
I just had a guest on. His episode will come out next week. John Moreno, super funny sketch guy, and he was talking about a similar situation where he was like getting really into certain substances, and he would. I don't want to spoil the episode, but he would be at shows. And him and his sketch team, and they would fucking crush. And people would be there, like
Yeah.
industry people, and they would talk after. And then he'd see those same industry people, like because it was a team.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, "Hey, why don't you guys all come into the office?" And he'd go up and be like, "Hi, I'm John Moreno. It's a pleasure to meet you." And they'd be like, "We talked for like 30 minutes yesterday."
Terrifying.
But he just doesn't. He was like, "My bad."
Yeah, I call that the lost day because
The
I
lost
really.
day.
It was like a body in motion. I have no idea what I did.
God, I dated someone who hated the taste of alcohol, but love the feeling, which is what Xanax is. It literally affects the exact same part of your brain. It's a barbiturate. And I remember she would just house like bars like crazy.
People are not there.
Yeah, and there was times where like, and this is going to be kind of depressing, but like I'd call her and be like, "Hey, how was the party last night?" And she'd be like, "We have to talk." And I go, "What happened?" And she goes, "I don't know, but I woke up in so and so's dorm."
Oh shit.
And I was like, "Well, did you guys like hook up or something?" And she's like, "I don't know," which is like terrifying because you're like, "Holy shit, dude! Like that's fucking horrible."
Yeah.
So I can't imagine just being at a barbecue.
Never did it again. Never.
So you
would.
want it done.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tried Coke once, and I was like, I like this way too much.
Yeah.
And
one you have to be
that
careful.
I knew myself. I was like, nope, can't do this.
Yeah, it was interesting because I love drinking so much that when I found cocaine, I was like, oh, I can drink more with this. Like, I love this. And I tell the story on stage sometimes about spending $26,000 in 28 days in Daytona.
Holy moly. Everything's like free there.
Yeah, it was bad. But the big, like, the tag or whatever is like even really bad cocaine gets expensive if you do enough of it. But that's like I was buying like so much of it. Just to like, and it was like basically baby aspirin with a little bit of cocaine in it.
Yeah.
But I was like, just that mental thing of like, I got to stay up and keep drinking.
Yeah.
Like, I got to keep partying. And that stuff, it is bad. It's very, very
and
bad.
you know why I never did it again? Because I was always listening to Mark Maron's podcast.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about cocaine.
Mark talks about it,
And I just remember him talking about it. And I was like, all right, well, he says it's bad, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, if Mark Maron says it's bad, then
Don't do it.
I want to ask you, we have time for one more story.
Okay.
Do you want to do Molly B Day or a sleep in the park?
Sleep in the park is boring.
Okay, let's do Molly B Day.
Okay, well, I did Molly on my birthday. This most recent one.
Okay, so this was recently.
Yeah, and it was
29.
29. I have never really had a birthday party in my 20s.
Let's talk. Yeah, this is interesting. Let's talk about this. So you were like, I want to do something fun for the last year of my 20s.
Yeah, and so me and some
like a book.
Yep. Yeah, girl wants to have fun, sue me. No, like me and some comics,
I need to ask you afterwards, off mic, what comics were there.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Well, no, because there's a comic who's been on the show before who has a biannual Molly party, and we've talked about it on the show. He has talked about it, and I think it might be the same person. You may or may not work with this person at a certain place.
Okay, we'll talk after.
Yeah. Just blowing up
our
the spot.
illustrious careers here. Yeah, no, and that was like actually really fun. We like.
Where did you do it?
We went like to some like dance place in
Okay.
Brooklyn and just like
They have those around here?
in Brooklyn.
In New York City? Do they have like dance?
Oh
clubs?
yeah, I think people club here. I think there's some partying happening.
It's so weird being sober and like being so addicted to like doing comedy. I forget sometimes that it's one of the greatest cities in the world.
Yeah, I
people
do
will be like-
nothing here.
But yeah, people are like I have a buddy of mine who will remain nameless, but he's like, yeah, we got a bunch of drugs, then we went to a sex club, and then we went to a dance club, and then after that, we went to this after hours bar that's on like the 90th floor of like some swanky place. And I'm like, he's like, it's on the rooftop, blah, blah. And I'm like, all that stuff is here?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, man, it's New York.
That's what I was like sitting outside waiting for a mic yesterday, and I was just thinking how like a city takes on the shape of what you make it.
Yep.
You know,
100%.
and because I was thinking about coming here today, and I was like, Philly, I knew through men and alcohol,
Yeah.
and New York, I know through comedy.
Yep.
And I never want to change that.
That's a very sweet sentiment because
I'm sweet.
yeah, I feel the same. Well, I feel the same way about life. Like the people who know me now know me as the person I am.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go home, the people who know me there know me as the person I was.
Yeah, so
and
hard.
It's very difficult to be like, I'm not that guy anymore. Like, and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, sure you're not.
Yeah.
And so it's a very poetic way to say it. It's like, this is how I know this, and this is how I want it to stay. Because I know for me, if I went back to that life in New York, I wouldn't last a month. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I'd find the fucking sketchy people. I'd start fights. I'd turn into that guy again.
Yeah.
And it's easier to do it in Daytona, where I'm from. It's a lot harder to do it in New York, where people don't fucking play around.
Yeah.
So you went to a dance club in Brooklyn
Yeah. We went dancing
all night? Like 6 a.m, come out, the sun's coming out?
Yeah.
Fucking just like
Going
a movie.
home with the sun up.
Were you like, this
and
is the best birthday ever?
It really was.
That's awesome.
It was just exactly what I wanted. And it was so fun. And
Anything crazy happen? Or were you doing the vitamins and stuff?
we did the vitamins. Yeah.
It's a big thing for
nothing.
anybody listening. We're not condoning doing illicit substances, but if
No.
you are, do it safely. Test your drugs.
Yes, we did that.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like super fun. Nothing crazy happened. I literally was just like smiling, and I didn't even dance. I was just like swaying all night.
Okay, because I've done ecstasy back in college, but I've never done like this new Molly that's like, supposed to be super pure. Is it just like a fun like fuzzy feeling, or like
Yeah, I was just like, oh, like
you feel like
I'm
the music
feeling
inside you?
love. Yeah, I was like
That's
feeling
what I hear
the
that
music.
a lot. Yeah. You're like, I
Um,
feel like I'm emanating the music. I hear that a lot.
yeah. I don't know. It was just like honestly super fun.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, if in 40 years my future kids are listening to this,
It was fun.
it was
but
don't
we
do
did
it
safely.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Or if you're gonna do it safely.
Yeah, and invite me. I'm
always-
still cool.
I always think about my nieces, my baby nieces.
Mhm.
I'm always like, God, they're gonna stumble upon this one day, and they're gonna be like, Uncle B was crazy.
Oh yeah, my nephews already know that I'm like the fuck up of the family.
Does your sister tell him about all the time she dropped you off at the psych
No,
ward?
that's a different sister.
Oh, okay.
But they don't even like he just knows. Like he said something to me. He was like, "Why are you always living in different places?" But he said it in like such a judgmental way. You know.
My lease ends after a year. I move.
Yeah, but he's like, yeah, he says things, and I'm like, you've got my number.
You got it.
You know me. You already have more money than me currently, and you're
Oh my
like
God.
7.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks
on.
for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. Plug everything one more time. Your social media, Clodog.
Follow me at Clodog, and that's spelled with a W, not like Snoop Dogg.
4 G's.
4 G's.
Well, thank you again. Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody, for listening at Brennan T. Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. Check out the one-man show, or don't. I'm going to put it up on YouTube.
No, check it out.
I'm gonna put it up on YouTube in 2 months.
Oh, okay.
I had to sit down with a comic, and they were like, "What are you afraid of?" And I go, "That it doesn't get." They were like very insistent. I was like, "Oh, this, that." They go, "What are you afraid of?" And I go, "That it doesn't get any views." And they go, "Fuck that, put it out." And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's fucking go.
Yeah, I'll watch it. You
So
got
we're
one.
taking it out of the paywall. Yeah, we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.